On the 22nd of March 2017, a terrorist attack in London began on Westminster Bridge, and continued into Parliament Square and the grounds of the Palace of Westminster. The attacker, identified as 52-year-old Briton Khalid Masood, born Adrian Russell Elms, drove a car into pedestrians on the pavement along the south side of Westminster Bridge and Bridge Street, resulting in more than 50 people being injured, 3 of them fatally, after the car crashed into the perimeter fence of the palace grounds. He abandoned it and ran into New Palace Yard, where he fatally stabbed an unarmed police officer. Masood was then shot by a close protection police officer, and died of his injuries at the scene. Background. Prior to the attack, the UK threat level for terrorism in the country was listed at severe, meaning an attack was highly likely. The last attack to have caused multiple casualties on the UK mainland had been the 7th of July 2005 London bombings. Since then, 2 other murders have been characterized by authorities as terrorism, those of Lee Rigby and an Islamist attack in May 2013. Attack. At 14:40 local time and UTC on the 22nd of March 2017, one of the victims' feller was thrown by the car's impact over the parapet of the bridge into the River Thames below. She was rescued by the crew of a City Cruises boat and was brought aboard a London Fire Brigade boat, having been knocked unconscious and sustained severe injuries. Masood, wearing black clothes, got out of the car and ran around the corner into Parliament Square and through the carriage gates of New Palace Yard, part of the palace grounds, where he fatally stabbed an unarmed police officer. PC Keith Palmer, sitting in a car nearby, was a Metropolitan Police Close Protection Officer for the Secretary of State for Defense, Michael Fallon. Witnessing the stabbing, the officer ran towards the scene and shot Masood several times. Despite attempts to resuscitate him, Masood died at the scene. Immediate aftermath. Prime Minister Theresa May, who was in the Commons for a vote, was evacuated by her security team in the prime ministerial car. Additional armed police officers arrived. An air ambulance from London Hems attended the scene. Parliament was suspended and MPs remained in the Commons debating chamber as a precaution. Parliamentary staff were told to remain in their offices, and visitors to Parliament, including journalists and children on school trips, were ordered to remain in the building. Some were later evacuated to Westminster Abbey. The UK government's Emergency Cabinet Office briefing room, COBRA, committee, chaired by the Prime Minister, met in response to the attack. Casualties. 5 people, including the perpetrator, died as a result of the incident, and around 50 others were injured, some of them severely. Of the 4 people killed by the perpetrator, 3 were British nationals. A dozen people received serious injuries, some described as catastrophic. Attacker. The attacker was identified by the Metropolitan Police as 52-year-old Briton Khalid Masood. Born in Kent, Masood was initially brought up in Rye, East Sussex, and later attended secondary school in Tunbridge Wells in Kent. Most recently he was living in the West Midlands. A British newspaper obtained a CV of Masood's in which he described himself as having been a teacher of English in Saudi Arabia between November 2005 and November 2006, teaching in Jeddah. He was reported to have returned again from April 2008 to April 2009 in Jubail, although he had been previously investigated by MI5. Scotland Yard said that Masood was not the subject of any current investigations and there was no prior intelligence about his intent to mount a terrorist attack. Masood spent the night before the attack at the Preston Park Hotel in Brighton in Sussex and was described as laughing and joking by the manager there. Motive. The motivation for the attack was suspected by the police to be Islamist extremism. Scotland Yard stated that it was investigating whether he was a lone wolf and inspired by terrorist propaganda or was being directed by others. Early reports. Some early reports gave descriptions of two supposed attackers, one described as a bald white man, and another as a black man with goatee beard. However, Mark Rowley, the Metropolitan Police's Assistant Commissioner for Specialist Operations, dismissed these claims, saying that the attack was a lone wolf attack. Investigation. Police and media outside the Hagley Road premises that were raided on the 22nd of March, seen on the morning following the raid. At 23:00 on the 22nd of March, West Midlands Police raided a flat in Hagley Road, Birmingham. By the morning of the 23rd of March, 6 locations in East London and Birmingham had been raided, resulting in the arrests of 8 people on suspicion of preparing terrorist acts. Reactions. Reactions to the attack expressed shock and outrage, and characterized it as an attack against liberty, freedom of speech, and democracy. Domestic. Those evil and twisted individuals who try to destroy our shared way of life will never succeed, and we condemn them. London is a great city, full of amazing people from all backgrounds, and when Londoners face adversity, we always pull together. The first media and public briefing from the Metropolitan Police Service, provided by Commander Ben Julian Harrington at New Scotland Yard following the attack. The speakers of both Houses of Parliament issued a joint statement on the afternoon of the attack. An extremely serious incident has occurred in the Westminster area this afternoon. The Metropolitan Police is dealing with this and an investigation is underway. On behalf of members of both Houses of Parliament, we wish to offer our thoughts to all those affected and their families. We would also like to express our gratitude to the police and all emergency services. The Scottish Parliament suspended the day's proceedings, including a debate on a second independence referendum. Both the House of Commons and the House of Lords resumed their normal functions on the 23rd of March, the day after the attack. Yesterday an act of terrorism tried to silence our democracy, but today we meet as normal, as generations have done before us and as future generations will continue to do, to deliver a simple message. We are not afraid and our resolve will never waver in the face of terrorism. The Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of the opposition, described the attack as an appalling atrocity. On the 23rd of March, Christian, Hindu, Jewish, Muslim and Sikh faith leaders met officers at Scotland Yard to discuss responses to the attack. In honor of PC Palmer, his police uniform and shoulder number 4157U were permanently retired. Charlton Athletic F.C. announced that his season ticket seat at the Valley would not be occupied at the club's next home game, but would instead have a club scarf placed over it as a mark of respect. On the 24th of March, Prince Charles visited injured victims of the attack at King's College Hospital. International. In addition to the expressions of shock, support, solidarity and sympathy offered by several national governments, on the evening of the attack, the Brandenburg Gate in Germany and Tel Aviv City Hall in Israel were illuminated with the Union Jack. severe, meaning an attack was highly likely. The last attack to have caused multiple casualties on the UK mainland had been the 7th of July 2005 London bombings. Since then, 2 other murders have been characterized by authorities as terrorism. Those of Lee New Palace Yard, where he fatally stabbed an unarmed police officer. Masood was then shot by a close protection police officer, and died of his injuries at the scene. Background. Prior to the attack, the UK threat level for terrorism in the country was listed at severe. On the 22nd of March 2017, a terrorist attack in London began on Westminster Bridge, and continued into Parliament Square and the grounds of the Palace of Westminster. The attacker, identified as 52-year-old Briton Khalid Masood, born Adrian Russell Elms, drove a car into pedestrians on the pavement along the south side of Westminster Bridge and Bridge Street, resulting in more than 50 people being injured, 3 of them fatally, after the car crashed into the perimeter fence of the palace grounds. He abandoned it and ran into an Islamist attack in May 2013. Attack. At 14:40 local time and UTC on the 22nd of March 2017, one of the victims' feller was thrown by the car's impact over the parapet of the bridge into the River Thames below.